Welcome back to Earth Station Trek, a show where we trek from the early days on NBC to the future on Paramount Plus and everywhere in between. I'm Charles Kelso, and it's my privilege to introduce the Earth Station Trek crew, Keith Johnson,
If I look fuzzy, it's because I'm fading out of reality.
Veronica Dashel,
Hi.
and welcome back.
Yay.
Happy 4th of July to everyone here in the States who celebrates, and happy Star Trek Prodigy to everyone else in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Do you want to give us a spoiler warning, Veronica?
Do. Spoilers.
And that's going to be spoilers for the first 5 episodes of Star Trek Prodigy Season 5, which are Into the Breach, Part 1 and 2, Who Saves the Saviors, Temporal Mechanics 101, and Observer's Paradox. And I don't think we'll go episode by episode. I think probably just talking about all of them generally, because we kind of watched them in a binge.
Yeah.
I'm going to have a hard time remembering where one stops and where one starts.
Yeah, boy.
But I think last time when we were watching Star Trek Prodigy, I think we were all pleasantly surprised as the show developed and really impressed with what they were able to accomplish in season 1. I think the show grew a lot, and I'm looking forward to what they do here in season 2.
Yeah, I'm especially looking forward to it because we've only watched the first 5, so we don't get confused, because I will definitely get confused.
Right.
And I've seen other people trying to post non-spoilery things, but they're so excited when they're like, this is the best Star Trek I've ever seen, and it's better than Deep Space Nine, or it's as good as Deep Space Nine, or right up there with Deep Space Nine. And I'm like, okay, that's not a thing I think I'd ever heard a Star Trek fan say about an animated series. So I'm excited to see the rest of it. But yeah, it's been so much fun so far. My only complaint is they're not using the holo emitter properly, because you can't just disappear in one place with the holo emitter on and reappear in another place with the holo emitter on. You're either a hologram without a holo emitter who could do that, or you can't do that with a holo emitter.
Right. I agree. Yes, that's one of my criticisms
That's
as well.
my only criticism.
Yeah, and I will say, if anyone joins us in the comments, let's keep the conversation confined to these 5 episodes.
Yes.
I've had to mute a few friends on Facebook already and mute a few Star Trek groups because people want to be firsties and show that they've seen all the episodes. But even no like pretend speculation, or like sometimes you can try to talk around something and paint a picture with your negative space. Like, just about the first 5 episodes this week.
Yeah.
And to be clear, to the follow up on your point, any speculation we do is only based on 5 episodes, because I also have I watched 7 episodes today, because I watched the last 2 episodes of season 1. So my head is hurting like Gwen's right now, because that's a lot to take in.
Right.
But yeah, any speculation for me also will be only for 5 episodes and nothing from online, because I'm like you, I'm scared to go into the groups now.
Yeah.
What they may say.
All right, we've got a couple of comments.
Hey,
Mr. Matt Sweatman says Prodigy is good, but not DS9 good.
I hear you, Matt.
And I wonder, because I've only seen now the first 20 episodes of season 1 and the first 5 episodes of season 2. So I wonder if you're comparing the first 25 episodes of each season of each series, how DS9 would hold up against Prodigy. And then Matt also commented, Elaine and I are right with you. We stopped after episode 5.
Cool.
Well, first impressions. Now we've seen the first 5 episodes. Anybody, what did you think?
I really like where Rock Talk's at, where she's like wanting to be in Starfleet and wanting to follow the rules and learn all the things. And most of the others are kind of like in the middle, where they're like, yeah, we're going to do this, but not really. And Dow is just like, nah, this is boring. I want to be captain again and go fly around into space.
Mm-hmm. What did you think of the first 5, Keith?
I thought it was really good as well. I found it very interesting what Veronica said about Dahl. I found interesting because I was thinking, well, is he another stereotype, rule breaker and stuff like that? But at the same time, he's kind of in the vein of a lot of Star Trek captains. I mean, if you think about, he's nothing like her, but if you think about Ensign Rowe and Elaine, a minor spoiler, I just realized for Star Trek, but Ensign Rowe, because it's not a big spoiler, when she first was asked by Picard to join Starfleet, Elaine, I know you know she was in Starfleet. She basically said, I've noticed qualities in you that can be shaped and molded. And then she says, funny, I always thought Starfleet had a lot to learn from me. And then Picard says, "That's a quality I see in all the finest officers."
Mm.
And so when I thought about it like that, it's like I don't think Dahl is like so much a stereotype, but at the same time, you got to remember he said a year ago we were just hanging out on that prison planet, so they're not Starfleet in the way
Right.
Starfleet is. And also, I was thinking about that. Veronica Rock had that. She had that. How many years in that time?
Yeah, that's true. So she's matured a lot more than the others, I think.
And she also endured years and years of loneliness.
Mhm.
So I think she is ready. So I kind of like that. Another thing I did like is I thought was interesting is when they were talking about the group who looked at them and basically said Janeways, whatever they called them,
Yeah.
making fun of them. And I was wondering, is this what Wesley Crusher felt like when he went to the Academy? Because you got to know people were eyeballing Wesley Crusher. I mean,
Yeah.
you think about it, by the time that guy went to the Academy, he'd saved Earth from the Borg. And so I wonder if he went through the same thing because Dahl and them were thinking, hey, we just saved Starfleet. And people are like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Right. Wesley got that.
I bet he did.
Yeah, I think that their characterizations so far and the way they're sort of interacting with fitting into Starfleet is pretty consistent with the way it was in season 1. Because I mean they all spent several years on that prison planet, and then when they escaped, Rock Talk was the one who, when they had a replicator for the first time, and she could choose anything she wanted to eat, and she ordered that Nutrigroup because it was all that she'd ever eaten at the prison planet. She had a hard time breaking out of that strict mindset of being a captive, whereas the others they didn't fit into it at all in the first place, and they so being free sort of worked out perfectly for them. But I could see them, especially if you're a kid who spent several years on a prison planet, maybe you're like Rock and you fit right into the being told what to do and being where you're supposed to be, and maybe you don't.
I can see that as well. And now it's like it's a home, because I thought it was interesting. Several times she was basically saying, "Don't mess this up again."
Right.
And she even told him, did she actually use the word cockamamie? She even said, "None of your cockamamie schemes."
I'll allow it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, like right now, Rock Talk is in the show that I want to watch. I want to watch them just being Starfleet officers and like learning how to use the control panels and things more than I want to see them like sneaking around and running around the ship.
Indeed.
I will say I think that Starfleet could stand to be a little bit stricter. When you've got these recruits who, first off, they followed the captain and spied on the captain during a confidential briefing about the top secret mission, and then snuck and fell onto the bridge.
They did it on the bridge. They were doing the top secret mission talking on the bridge.
Well, no, because they went down to Shuttle Bay 3.
Oh, that's true.
And they snuck in Shuttle Bay 3 to find out what was going on with this classified mission. And then when they found out, they're like, okay, well, we'll brief you. So then they're walking around talking about the classified mission loudly in the corridor and got overheard.
Yeah.
And then instead of reporting what happened, they went and accidentally stole the ship, flew through the wormhole, ruined the mission and possibly the timeline. And then it's like, all right, well, now you're all on probation. So I think maybe stricter consequences would help with the discipline on Starfleet ships. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I thought that too when Dahl was saying that out. He's walking down the hall going, Shuttle Bay 3. And then the lady whose name I didn't record, the Vulcan,
Majel,
thank you. I should know that. Majel.
Right.
Who almost acted a little bratty at first for Vulcan. But then she heard him and she's like, yeah, we're going to record this and report you.
All right, we got a quick comment, and I put it on screen already, so it's getting awkward, so I'm going to read it. It says, one detail that I'm not clear on, this is from Matt Sweatman. The dialogue seems to indicate that Dal and company are Starfleet Academy candidates, not yet cadets. And that's true. Yeah, they're sort of, they're like trainees. They're like they haven't been admitted into the Academy.
They're interns.
Yeah, I think they're basically like what you'd be if you were going to join it like an O'Brien, like if you were going to be, or a yeoman, like if you're going to be a non-commissioned officer. And you could join Starfleet as a recruit because their application to the Academy was rejected at the end of last year.
I even, it's an interesting comment, Matt, because I even wrote in my notes, they almost remind me somewhat of ROTC, people that I knew in high school, not quite there. And I kind of wondered, I would tend to think there would be a program like that in Starfleet because, it's like you get somebody from some planet that barely even knows that the Federation exists, and they couldn't possibly always be ready to go straight to the academy. So you would think that would be a normal program anyway, not something special Janeway had to dream up.
Yeah. All right, we've got some comments from a new commenter that I don't recall seeing
Hey.
before. Kimberly Ann Hart says, hi, Admiral on deck, and we love Janeway.
Yay.
I
Hello,
agree.
Kimberly.
And
Welcome,
then
Kimberly.
Irish Banshee 1974 says, I think that Janeway half expects Dal and the rest to figure out what's going on. While she's upset about what has happened, she doesn't seem too shook up.
I agree. Because, like, her message said something that U5 would be specifically suited for.
Mm-hmm.
And then the doctor goes on to say, like, well, everyone's needed in their own way at a certain time if certain things happen. I'm like, no, she specifically said U5 are specially suited for. So I feel like, I don't know.
She could not possibly have intended them to steal the Infinity and fly through the wormhole and disrupt the timeline.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too, Veronica. And I wonder if, as you're saying, I wonder if it's like she wants somebody who kind of thinks outside the box.
Yeah.
But they went a little too far outside the box, like you said on this time. I mean,
yeah.
So I was wondering that as well, because you have some of the, like, didn't Starfleet officially say the mission was too dangerous, and they were kind of sitting there thinking about it, and then she was kind of like, well, that wasn't what I was thinking about when the stupid shuttle, or was it the Infinity, flew into the to the wormhole. So maybe she was thinking, but I agree with Charles, she certainly wasn't thinking them to maybe mess up the timeline, however they did. I also, did you guys notice that the term timey-wimey was used?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a thing now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really is.
Apt though in this season, because there's a lot of temporal mechanics going on in these first 5 episodes.
Oh boy, is there ever? Yeah.
And they've tried to give little explanations as they've gone along, and they even had Dr. Erin McDonald do a cameo, I guess, as herself as a Starfleet officer. Dr. Erin McDonald is one of the science advisors for the new Star Trek series.
Oh, that's who it was.
She did the whole like like Mr. DNA or whatever from Jurassic Park, where she's like, welcome to Temporal Mechanics 101. But she didn't explain a whole lot. It was like, imagine the timeline like dominoes, and one's missing. Sometimes you got to push them over. Good luck. Wow.
One thing I've noticed, this has been common since the Abrams verse movie in 2009, and a lot of science fiction, is they have 100% embraced the idea now, at least with this show, that you don't change the past, you create a new timeline. And so at least that's what I got from that, because I think she was saying her father who died and the other timeline is still dead, because she's creating an alternate future. She even said you can't change the past. And that's not what Star Trek and science fiction used to say. And then that father's her father from an alternate future. So are we saying that the other timeline is still there? In other words, the timeline where her planet is going to destroy itself in Civil War will always exist, and she's trying to create an alternate timeline where it doesn't destroy itself in Civil War?
Well, yeah, it seems like we've got an alternate timeline for our, like, the prime timeline now, because that's what it seems like. But also, when Chakotay didn't go back in time, she started to disappear like Marty McFly.
Yeah.
Right.
But I guess you can stop from disappearing. So I don't know. Right now it's
I'm confused, man.
Yeah. I did hear one of the producers on the Trek Movie Podcast, Aaron Waltke, was saying that they came up with an all-encompassing theory of time travel for Star Trek that they think makes sense, and that's what they're using for season 2. So thus far, I wouldn't say that it has achieved that, but I'm looking forward to seeing more. All right, we've got a few comments here. I'm getting behind them. So Kimberly Ann Hart says, Janeway, the best captain. Time travel is a headache if you avoid it. Matt Sweatman says, I did think that Dr. McDonald felt more fleshed out, and it makes sense that she's based on the series' science advisor.
I think it's awesome.
Kimberly Ann Hart said, kind of like Back to the Future 2, you alter the past, it becomes the new present. And Irish Banshee 1974 says, did you catch the whale's name? Her name is Jillian, after Catherine Hicks' character in Star Trek 4.
Yep.
I did not catch that. I did not.
Well, what do we think of the portrayal in Lower Decks of Cetacean Ops?
You mean in Prodigy?
That's what I mean, in Prodigy. Wherever we are.
They have a whale on this one, and the other one had belugas.
Right.
was interesting. I like that there's different sea creatures on there, and I like how they took whale speak into it with Murph.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually like this one better, although the other one, but they are two different things. The other one is so comedic because the whales in Lower Decks are almost literally always saying, basically, get naked and jump in the water with us.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
And this one was a lot more. This is a lot different. I would still be really. I know whales and dolphins, porpoises have all this great navigation. But I'm still trying to figure out how a waterbound Earth species does navigation in outer space through warp drive and stuff. But so that's just a whole thing. I don't get how they're doing that. But I thought it was pretty cool, and I like the way the communications and stuff. I thought that was, and it made them seem, because we talk about this all the time in real life on Earth now, that whales and is it what's the proper word? Octopuses, octopi,
We had a
whichever
debate
one
about
it
that
is.
one time.
Yeah, Alan schooled us on what it was.
Right.
But the whole thing is that they may be intelligent, but not intelligent like we're intelligent. And
okay, maybe.
So they might be completely different. So the whales sounded sufficiently different from humans, and I actually liked that whole interaction. That was cool.
Yeah, I like that it had this sort of robotic sounding voice, kind of like Darwin from Sequest. But I like that it's a more serious portrayal of cetacean ops. It's not quite as jokey. I like that it's a humpback whale. As Elaine said, that's a great callback to Star Trek 4. But also, I mean, you mentioned them being navigators, and it could just be that, kind of like in Star Trek 2, where humans sometimes have trouble with three-dimensional thinking because we evolved to navigate two-dimensionally, essentially, whereas sea life may have evolved, with three-dimensional navigation built into them.
Yeah.
So they might do better astronavigating, if they had the opportunity and we had the communication barrier broken. But I think it's cool. I think it's a nice little Easter egg that was like maybe mentioned on the intercom on TNG and in the tech manual.
Yeah.
But I like that Lower Decks and Prodigy have both embraced it in different ways. But I think they feel like they could be the part of the same universe anyway, because the whale here is still funny. It's not, get naked and come swim with me funny, but it has kind of a funny rapport where it's like, I'm sorry, I was eavesdropping on you. I could see those whales getting along with Jillian.
Yes.
Okay, we've got some more comments.
And
here.
it's absolutely in the same universe because the doctor mentioned the Cerritos.
That is true.
Yeah.
Is true. Did you like the reference to the Cerritos?
I did.
I did too.
I expected him to say Voyager, like the original Voyager. So when he said Cerritos, that was funny.
Yeah.
Now I want him to be in season 5 of Lower Decks. I want to see the encounter he's talking about. All right, let's get some comments real quick. Kimberly Ann Hart says, never alter the future for personal gain and bet. And yes, the whale, Irish Banshee 1974 says, naked. And Kimberly Ann Hart laughed.
Kimberly, here's an interesting thing I thought about. When you say never alter the future for personal gain, that's a very interesting thing, because if you take the now modern viewpoint, the quantum reality viewpoint, that every time you change the past or the future, you spin off a new timeline. If you think about that, y'all, you can have your morals and ethics kind of go out the window. You think about it, you can do horrible stuff and say, well, I didn't change the original timeline. So if I could do some stuff that I could maybe get away with, become a trillionaire, and this timeline continues, there's some thoughts about that. You might want to do some stuff because the other timeline will still be there.
Yeah. You might go swim with those beluga whales.
Yeah.
You mentioned the diviner, Gwen's father. And I was surprised that we got to see him as a young man.
Yeah.
What did we think of young Solom, or Solom, present day Solom, but also young diviner?
I was very intrigued. He was basically an astronomer, and everyone was like, space.
Yes. Yeah, I did not expect that.
And then Essentia had gone back, and they're worshiping her for whatever reason, and I don't get that though. Her younger self is there and she's there. I don't understand how that's not breaking the laws of time travel and isn't ripping the universe in half, because that's how it's supposed to work.
I don't think. Have we ever seen in Star Trek where meeting your younger self rips the universe in half?
I don't know. That's how it works in science fiction. You're not supposed to meet your other self.
Here we go. That's another weird one. I thought of a really strange one. Talk about a left field pull, but the fantasy series, the Dragon Riders of Pern, they managed to time travel. And when you would meet your other self from a time travel, when you met a different version of yourself, like your future self, they would get a headache and they'd have to run away, and like I think they were going to die if they stood in the same room. So yeah, I don't know that in this case it would be a problem. But I did think it was kind of cool that she got there ahead of Gwen, and man, has she done a number on those folks? I told you, here she is. She said everything I told you she's going to say. And I was surprised you mentioned about her father, Charles. It was so funny to see the contrast because he was introduced with, of course, that voice of John Noble. You just can't mistake that voice. He was so menacing. And this dude's like, hey, like you said, I'm looking at the stars. I'm like, man, look at that dude. He's weak. He's a wimp. He's useless. It was wild to see. It was also wild to see him even smile and have just pure affection for his daughter and call her his daughter instead of my progeny, which always sounded a little detached to me.
Yeah, a few weeks ago, I was talking sort of derisively about the modern Star Trek tendency to have the big evil person out for revenge and a big evil ship. And I mentioned that Prodigy did that, but they took it in some interesting directions. And I think this is continuing to take that in some interesting directions because now we go back and we meet him as sort of a young innocent. It's Solomon in general, but him specifically makes me think of the Dark Crystal with the big planet things in his little stargazer room. But yeah, I thought that was super cool. And I will say too, like young Essentia does not seem terribly into this. Like she's
like
looking at her future self like, I don't know about this.
Future me is psycho.
Why am I a jerk?
But you know, that's one kind of interesting aspect of the time travel because both Gwen's father and her Essentia, you know, again, maybe he will look at that and say, I don't want to become that guy that I've heard about from the other timeline, even to save my planet. Maybe the young Essentia will be the same way. You know, you look at yourself, you know, what's the old thing? If I had it to do over again. And so it's kind of weird to see yourself the way you have become. So I thought that was really interesting that they gave him an opportunity to be a completely different character this time. And also make you think about what can make you turn that way. Well, what would you do to save a world?
Now we've seen a few different types of time travel on Star Trek, and Majel referenced it. And this is sometimes you have the predestination paradox where you're always meant to go back in time, right? Right. So now when they were on present day Solom, and Gwen mentioned that Essentia is sort of turning them, like making them paranoid about space travelers. Do we think this is setting up the Solom that is the paranoid Solom in the future that freaks out when first contact happens? Or is this a parallel timeline where they're taking it in a different direction?
I think she's going to be the one that ends up setting it up. And that's why they're freaked out. Because
we mentioned in season 1, like, wow, they really freaked out when a Starfleet ship showed up and just burnt their whole planet to the ground. But I mean, if you had someone from the future saying that the coming of Starfleet is going to ruin us 50 years before they got there, I mean, maybe that would make a difference.
Yeah, I wrote the same thing. Was it that they and actually I asked it, was it her or Gwen that they somehow caused the future? Because like you said, in science fiction, my God, everything from Logan's Run to so much stuff, 12 Monkeys, you could just go down the list of the person who was supposed to stop the thing actually caused the thing. Right. And also Majel did mention when she talked about that, she mentioned the Bell riots. And slight spoilers for Deep Space Nine when Cisco went back in time, and there was the whole thing with the Bell
spoiler warnings for things that happened in 1993.
In case somebody hadn't seen DS9, and then she mentioned the Cochrane's warp flight from First Contact, and now really going back. Now I won't do a spoiler on this one. Assignment Earth from the original series. Okay. At the end of the show, when Gary Seven was recording his log, remember he said, despite the interference of the Earth. Despite the interference by the Earth ship from the future, and then Spock says, correction, Mr. Seven, it just appears the Enterprise was always meant to be here, was always part. So maybe it is that kind of weird paradox. I do know I'm having trouble keeping the timeline in my head right now. Maybe because I watched 7 episodes in one day.
Yeah, at least it happens often enough that those
Mhm.
the Department of Temporal Investigation guys that went to talk to Cisco were like, so you're not saying it's the predestination paradox? We hate those.
Yeah.
All right, I'm getting behind on comments again, so I'm going to grab a few
Cool.
comments. Mr. Matt Sweatman says, I wonder, with Solom being very isolationist in the present timeline, how much the Prime Directive applies?
Clearly not at all.
And then he went on to say, I think the hope is that not only will Solom avoid its apocalypse, but Gwen's father can be a more positive person in his future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Kimberly Ann Hart says, I can't wait for season 3 of Prodigy.
Well,
And so, I mean, I love Gwen, and Essentia is a real pain. And then Matt Sweatman followed up with, I think Magella is going to be a trusted companion of the main gang by the end of this season. Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah. Yeah.
But let's get back to the Prime Directive question, because usually you've got the Prime Directive. You've also got the Temporal Prime Directive. So to see Starfleet like, okay, let's go to this place that we know things about the future that's never contacted us before, like that just seems way out of character for Starfleet. Like usually it'd be like, under no circumstances. It's not like a double negative. Like, oh, we're violating both, so we're allowed. Like, it's very strange.
So the first time through, they didn't know anything about the planet, though, right? That was
so
the whole
far as
point.
we know. But this time around, like they just like took Gwen there and dropped her off to warn her people.
Yeah.
With this knowledge from the future.
Yeah.
I see. You're right, because here we go again. But you're right. I guess they figured the planet destroying itself was better. But you're right. That is kind of messing with the timeline already, doing something like that.
Supposedly, them destroying the planet is fine. It doesn't matter that they're destroying their planet. Don't break the Prime Directive and don't break the Temporal Directive. Yeah,
they did say, though, at the end of season 1, when the wormhole opened, that it was a wormhole to an alternate future.
Right.
So maybe they're just saying, like, well, alternate future. We can do what we want in this timeline.
Yeah, and that's what I was musing earlier. Is the planet that destroyed itself always going to be there? But then to that point, if they say, quote unquote, let's say they save the planet in the main timeline, the OS timeline with Janeway and company, will her planet, or then they saying 52 years in their future, it won't be destroyed? Because the timelines merge, I guess is what I'm saying. That's where I started getting a little confused.
Yeah, I'm not certain.
And one thing I want to follow up on Matt said, I think it's a very interesting question about the Prime Directive. And it also depends on what time you're talking about. Again, if you go back to the original series, there was a couple of times where people were basically like, we don't want to talk to you. And Kirk's like, these are my orders. We're going to talk to them whether they want to or not. Right. Most famously, Spectre of the Gun, where the Melkoshian said, stay away. And Kirk's like, my orders are to establish first contact. So he went down and ended up in the Old West. And then, okay, I've got to say spoilers. This is my spoiler. This is from TNG, Elaine. There's an episode that's coming up about first contact, and I'll leave it there. But they basically they kind of do a sneaky thing. You find out that first contact with some races is basically one or two people beaming in. So I'm wondering if that's how they would have done it. Like, would you look at a planet and say, well, they're kind of xenophobic? Would you then say, we will never contact them? Or would you have one or two people specially trained to go down and talk to a couple of leaders and then try to assess the situation?
Yeah. I think on the original series, it really would have depended to like if it was just like a strategic planet along the Klingon border or something.
Right.
Like if they felt like the Klingons are coming anyhow, then Starfleet's going in there first, no matter what. Whether they're using stone knives and bear skins, it don't matter because the Klingons
exactly.
Yeah. Whereas on Next Gen, they might have like disguised themselves as those people for several years and like or been behind like a cloaked duck blind trying to watch them. So I think it just differs by the series. But I mean, planets you never make contact with make for boring TV episodes.
Indeed.
Yeah.
At the very least, somebody's got to like be crash landed on the planet. For something interesting for to happen.
Yeah. There's a whole other show I'd love to do about that one time, because one of the things we talk about with the Prime Directive is, case in point, what you said, Charles. I've thought about this for decades. If you got a planet that's like in the middle of a nexus of like the Klingons, the Romulans, the Tholians, and the Federation, it's like, how in the heck would you keep those people completely isolated? Because one of those races, like, whatever, we're going to conquer them. Or somebody is going to do like that girl in Pen Pal is going to use a radio somewhere somewhere in a wide galaxy, somebody's going to hear this stuff. So yeah, it's a tough thing to keep them isolated forever.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, let's take a quick break for about a 30-second promo, and then when we get back, we've got another interesting comment I want to hit. So everybody, stay right there.
Attention, people of Earth!
Turned on the TV late last night.
Cause I felt nerdy.
Save the galaxy from a fright.
Cause I felt nerdy. Turned on my TV late last night. Cause I felt nerdy. Defied gravity and took flight. Cause I felt nerdy.
Exterminate, seek, locate, destroy. I have to go. Having some problems up here. Good luck. Stay safe. See you soon.
And we're back. Now, we had a comment from Irish Banshee 1974, which says, so who is behind the ethereal being that was helping them out? Is it Chakotay? Is it Daniels?
I think it's Dal.
You think it's Dal?
Yes.
Okay.
How? In what way? I'm
Well,
not arguing with that. I'm just curious. I'm genuinely curious.
So that's the voice. That's whose voice it sounded like when it first appeared and started talking. I'm like, that's Dal from the future.
Okay.
And he is telling them what needs to happen because this is a whatever the paradox thing is, where this is what's supposed to happen the first time around. And the reason that there was a different thing before is because that was supposed to happen before, and now this other thing is supposed to happen to keep moving forward. So yeah, I think it's him coming back and telling them what they need to do in order to fix everything, basically.
Okay. Yeah.
And with his,
Go ahead.
yeah, I'm sorry.
Day back.
With his love for Gwen, then explain why the message says "Save Gwen" in that case. According to your theory,
Could be.
My other thought on the Save Gwen thing was that it was actually the diviner.
Okay.
Because he knew that she was there, so he knew to leave a message because he was there when they appeared, and they were like, we got a message. So he knows that there's supposed to be a message. But he was also there at the site with them, but then he had already met them, but he hadn't already met them.
So you think it's something from this show?
Yes.
It's kind of like a Red Angel kind of a thing, where it's like, it's not going to be an alien. It's not going to be something from other Star Trek. It's going to be one of our characters.
Yeah.
Later on in the season.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Either-
I hope it's not Daniels.
It's either Dow or Murph.
See, which Daniels? Like, are we talking about Agent Daniels or like Kovich from Discovery Time?
Yeah, I don't want that Kovic dude again. That was just weird.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe Agent Daniels I'm okay with. Look, as long as it's not Future Guy from Enterprise, I'm okay.
Well, speaking of which, there was a dude who looked like Future Guy that turned up.
Yes, it did.
Do we think that's Future Guy, or is it just a nod?
I think it's just a nod.
Okay, you don't think it's gonna be? Because we never found out the identity of Future Guy on Enterprise.
We did not.
That is wide open territory there if someone wants to swoop in.
Yeah, the prevailing fan theory that gets like 40% of the votes is that Future Guy in Enterprise was Archer.
Yeah.
Some kind of weird future, which is strange because Future Guy behind some killing, so I don't think I see that as Archer.
Now, could they establish that Future Guy on Enterprise was Dow?
Wow.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. I will say, all the joking and kidding aside, the theories that you already put forward, every one of them is honestly valid right now.
Yeah.
Everyone's valid. I could see a case for any one of these. And so I'm really, I'm up in the air about that. My head doesn't usually hurt this much when I do time travel stuff, but I was trying to follow it. And I actually got lost in this one. So I don't know. I just don't know yet.
When those spheres showed up, when the sphere showed up outside the wormhole and started talking to them, and my first thought was like, "Oh, good, aliens."
No.
When I was watching, I'm like, "It's probably not going to be aliens." It's almost never aliens on these new Star Trek shows.
Yes.
On Discovery in season 4, it was aliens, but usually it's not aliens. Usually it's going to be something from old Star Trek, or like Veronica said, our own character 5 episodes from now.
Right.
Okay, so we've got some comments. Kimberly Ann Hart commented that she thinks it's Daniels.
One for Daniels, but like you said, which one?
Matt Sweatman said, I like it as in season 1, they've not felt stuck. The story has rapidly changed and developed in these 5 episodes, and more mysteries have been revealed.
Indeed.
True.
That's true. This show never feels to me like it's spinning its wheels.
Yeah.
It's
No.
always on to the next thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Agreed.
And then Matt says, mind blown. Appropriate when talking about a Cronenberg character. We don't need that kind of mind blowing on Prodigy. This is still a Nickelodeon co-production. You ever saw Scanners? The heads exploding.
No.
Okay.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So I'm interested. I'm not ready to nail down like who I think it is, but I'm intrigued. What do we think of? I mean, Gwen had her little like 2001 moment where she shifted into another reality and went warping through the stars.
Yeah.
Did
Someone talked to her.
Did anybody think, how does she breathe? Or is that just me?
No, I thought about that briefly.
Okay.
'Cause she's like, I guess because she's like there but not there.
Yeah, maybe she's like out of phase, right?
So she doesn't have to breathe in any where she's at.
Yeah. I thought of her like Kirk in the Tholian Web. He was phasing in dimensions. So
but at least he was in a spacesuit.
Yeah, that's true. He was running out of oxygen.
Yeah. Well, let's go back to Majel. We mentioned Majel, but we've not talked much about Majel.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think the new Star Trek shows have done a really good job, is that almost every one of them has given us like a really interesting female Vulcan character who are all very distinct from one another, with New T'Pring, to Lynn, to Lynn, to what's the one on Discovery's name? Talina. Okay, I'll go with that.
Wow,
We've got some real. I think they're all distinct characters, but all interesting trails of Vulcan women. And now we have Majel, named after the wonderful Majel Barrett. What do we think of Majel?
She seems like she's a goody two shoes. And she is taking the fact
Tarina. Isn't it Tarina?
Yes, that's right.
Go ahead. Sorry.
And she's taking the fact that Vulcans don't lie entirely too literally, because that's not actually true.
Well, she's Nova Squad. And that's another thing I was surprised.
Right, but she's not Nova Squad. She's still a trainee.
Well, she's a Nova Squad. She's applying to Nova Squad, I guess.
Don't you have to like not be asked to be a Nova Squad after you're
She's got the Nova Squad pin.
Yeah, I think she's in Nova
I
Squad.
didn't understand.
Because she had a Nova Squad pin. I think she's in Nova Squad now.
But she has the same uniform as them, so she's not actually a cadet yet.
Maybe she's a trainee who's trying to join Nova Squad. I'm surprised there even is a Nova Squad, because I thought Nova Squad was disbanded after Nick Locarno's big accident.
Yeah.
And then in universe, just a few years ago, Nick Locarno came back with his Nova fleet. So it's a little surprising that there's a Nova Squad allowed to be.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Because by the time Nog was there was Red Squad.
Yeah.
But not Nova Squad. So far as we know.
Yeah.
Anyways, but Nova Squad, I think you got to be kind of an arrogant jerk, right? Like Red Squad's the same way. That's just kind of being in it.
Yeah, I actually had to check her ears real quick when they first introduced her, because she was so kind of arrogant and bratty that I was like, she's a Vulcan? I mean, because there's the standard standoffish kind of dryly condescending Vulcan.
Right.
And she was a little more emotive than I'm used to at the start. Just a little more. So I thought, I didn't know. Then I was looking, because Alan talked about what's his face from Discovery. Then I was looking to see, okay, well, maybe she's one of those aliens that have like 2 or 3 points on their ears, and she's not really. And they're like, oh no, she's Vulcan. So she was kind of bratty when she first came off. I'm liking her more as I went through the 5 episodes.
Yeah.
It's interesting watching 5 episodes, because if I'd only watched one, I would be sitting here going, I don't think I'm going to like that character.
Yeah.
But after 5 episodes, like, okay, she's changing and growing a little bit due to the situation.
And she hesitated when they wanted to come sit with them at lunch, and her Nova Squad trainee buddies were like, come over here. She's like, oh, I can't. Like, I think she wants to, though. Like, she wants to come sit with them.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. We've got a few comments. Regarding Gwen's spacewalk, Matt says, that scene reminded me of Spock's walk in the motion picture. Our friend Bill Lamond has joined.
Hey, Bill.
Welcome, Bill. Kimberly Ann Hart says that she agrees with Veronica.
I don't remember what I was talking about at that point, but thank you. I'm always
yeah.
And then Bill Lamont says, I love watching the director's cut of the motion picture with riff tracks, and I love the riffs for Spock's jetpack tour of the alien mega ship. I like just watching the movie.
Yeah.
And then our Irish Banshee 1974 says, I loved how Majel whipped out that bandana to cover her ears when they landed on future Solom.
She was ready.
Yes, like that's like standard operating procedure. If you're a Vulcan and you're on a planet or back in time or forward in time, like you got to cover your ears.
Yep.
Even if you're traveling with a Tellarite and a purple alien and a Medusan, and you're not going to blend in even with a bandana on.
Yeah.
Yeah, Vulcans always have to have ski caps or something, or a Nazi hat or something to cover their ears.
Right. Yeah. That's just like the Spock thing. So I thought that was funny. It's
Yeah.
kind of silly, but it's the kind of thing that a Vulcan might do. Like, well, I have to cover my ears.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk a little about Chakotay and his first officer, because they found them on Solom.
So was that bird people one of the bird people that Peanut Hamper met?
No, I don't think so. I think it's supposed to be one of the bird people from the animated series.
Okay.
The Aurelians.
The warrior race, the warrior people.
Oh, the Score.
No, okay, that was a different one.
They look exactly the same, so it could be.
Yeah. Okay, I wasn't thinking about that.
The Aurelians were the ones from yesteryear. Remember, there was one that was on the planet studying with the tricorder. Not that it really matters, but what do we think? I mean, they thought at first, they're like, oh, we're here and we're supposed to be here to help Captain Chakotay escape.
Yeah.
And then he like escaped all the way.
Yeah.
They're like, oh crap.
That was great.
Yeah. Yeah. And Dal's like, oh, who left that? Oh.
Phaser rifle. Right.
That was me.
I did love the bit when they jump on the bike and he was like, look how distracting we are.
Yeah. I just like, I've said this many times, Chakotay has always been one of my favorite characters in all of Star Trek. And honestly, not because what was on the page, as it were, but because of the potential that the character had, because they never used that man right in Voyager.
Right.
Yeah, that's just truth. They never used him right, but his potential I always loved. So I found it very fascinating that somebody who had been in Starfleet, dropped out, become a Maquis, kind of sort of doesn't like to follow the rules, is back in Starfleet as a captain, and even not only wants to, but is trusted to take up this incredibly advanced and experimental ship. So I thought it was cool to see that. I hope to see a lot more of Chakotay, because one of the things about Voyager, Chakotay has a dangerous edge to him. I've always said that, and they never managed to do that in the series. I'd like to see a little bit more of that. He has the potential to be a kind of different character. Like Sisko's a different kind of captain. He's just different. And Chakotay has the potential to be a slightly different type of Starfleet captain. And I'd love to see that. So I'm really excited about that. Question about Chakotay. The message when he was recording the Janeway, he said, I'm sorry. I kept rewinding. There was something else he said at the end. Was there something that they kind of garbled when he was talking to her? And should that indicate they're in love with each other? I couldn't tell what he said.
They know that there's Chakotay Janeway shippers, and they're kind of towing that line.
Yeah, they are.
I don't think they're shying away from that at all. It's like, is she trying to find him because he was her first officer, or is she trying to find him because she loves Chakotay?
Yeah.
We don't know, but I'm sure we'll find out. But I've enjoyed Chakotay's portrayal on the show so far.
Yeah.
I thought that he's been good, and I like that his first officer survived.
Yes.
Because he died in the first timeline. It's kind of weird. They go to the future, but the future is sort of the past. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, they're altering the past by being in the future. It's kind of fun.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm interested to see where Chakotay wound up now, because Chakotay flew back through the vortex, and we don't know yet where he emerged.
Well, didn't they found out that he was on a colony?
No, they found the colony I think that he's from.
Because they said
that was I thought the implication was that he was a former resident of that colony, and now he's in Starfleet, missing in action. But that spiral, the mystical spiral, is like from his planet, and it was a clue, Yeah,
because they said something to the effect that he was missing or something like that.
Yeah.
Right.
So I took it to be like that somehow he had gone back a little bit in time and couldn't get back, and now he was on that colony. It turns out he's been on that colony this entire time and hadn't been able to get back.
Possible.
But
maybe I took it as that was the planet that Chakotay was from, because he was from a colony in the DMZ. That's why he wound up on the Maquis. I don't know. Are we going to see Chakotay do a vision quest? Will they even? Well, I mean, really, what I'm getting at, are they going to touch on any of the Native American stuff, knowing how poorly it was handled on Voyager?
I hope not.
Will they maybe get a better like maybe someone of Native American ancestry to write the story. You know what I mean? And have it be authentic, or do you think they're just going to stay away from that? Because so far there's been no Kuchimoyas, there's been no Vision Quests, nothing like that.
I think they're gonna stay away from it.
Okay.
I hope so.
Yeah, I do too. Because I always think I'm not Indian and I'm not Asian, but you watch a lot of TV shows and stuff. I watch like a lot of old westerns, and every time they introduce an Indian, they always play the dun 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 kind of music, or those. Every time there's a Japanese or Chinese person, they play what is considered to be Asian music. And they did that in Voyager, and that was one of the things I heard a lot of people say is every time Chakotay did that, they played that music that people associate with Native Americans, that ethereal music. I think they're going to probably stay away from that.
Right. Or just like a flute, like a wooden flute.
That's the thing. Yeah, the flute.
Yeah.
That was the thing I was thinking about. Yeah, every time they say something, there was a flute, and they always spoke like, bad fortune cookie, which is itself kind of a stereotype. So I think they'll stay away from that.
Okay. I would be interested though if they decided to do it right and do it well. I would love to see that element of his, because I thought it was, when I was a kid, I didn't know any difference, and I just thought it was cool that there was a Native American guy on Star Trek. So I would still love to see them explore that if they could do it properly and it wasn't just him talking to his forefathers and his spirit animal.
Yeah, they got a little goofy.
All right. Matt Sweatman commented that Chakotay was listed as a former resident.
Okay.
When Matt said it, you believe him. When I say it, you say, I don't think so.
Because Matt right now can go and look up the answer. You cannot.
Okay.
No, we can't do those next two comments. They're kind of spoilery, not spoilery.
Oh, are they?
Yeah,
okay.
They're kind of spoilery, not spoilery for the rest of season 2.
Okay. Well, yeah. I would like to see where the show goes next. I got a little distracted by that. What you just said. So, I mean, where do we? And we've only seen the first 5 episodes. Where do we think the show is going to go?
I hope, from what I've heard, that it's a good, solid ending to a series in addition to a season ending. So I'm hoping that there's going to be some kind of solution with Solem, and that they're not going to just end up destroying themselves, or at least as we know it right now, they are not planning on freaking out because they already know now. And that all the kids are going to start the academy. I think that's where they're going to end, with them starting the academy, and Chakotay is back.
Okay. What do you think, Keith?
Well, I was thinking the same thing about Chakotay. Is given that he is now in yet another alternate reality, I wonder if the alternate reality he is in now, wherever he is something he won't want to leave. Are they going to have to reset it and have him go back and get off the ship and stay there? Is he's going to have to make a noble sacrifice? Are they going to have to find him and tell him? It's not quite like yesterday's Enterprise, but are they going to have to tell him, well, Chakotay, you can't, we have to go back and do this again. You can't have escape. You got to get back in there. You got to go back, and you got to send the ship out. It'd be very interesting to see that, especially if he and Janeway somehow find each other, and then they have to lose each other because he's got to go back, and then he can say something, emotional, like "I'll see you in however many years." I don't know, but I'm very interested to see if something like that's going to happen with Chakotay.
Yeah, it's interesting that the protostar not going back to Tars Lamora was causing Glenn to glitch, but it didn't affect Essentia. It didn't affect any of our characters, because that basically erases season 1.
Yeah.
Right? Like they never all would have wound up there.
Yeah.
So you think they all would have been, even like the ship wouldn't have been at the wormhole had the protostar not gone back to Tars Lamora. So I'm wondering if we're going to wind up getting to a point where they create a similar, like they sort of create a different version of the timeline. Or what? Really, what I'd like for the show to do is get away a little bit from this time travel stuff and like go to some planets. I'd like to see these kids like learning to be Starfleet officers, even if they struggle with it. And have their little side quests and little adventures and things. I was really more invested in watching what Rock Talk was doing, learning how to work station ops and following the orders and being where she's supposed to be and doing what she's supposed to do. Because I think that's interesting to see this group of characters in a Starfleet setting. But right now they're in a Starfleet setting, but still just running around and having their little hijinks.
Yeah.
So I'm if we get done enough in time tonight, I want to watch season 6, or episode 6. I'm interested to see what is going to happen next.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was very disappointed that we weren't going to watch more, but I'm glad we didn't watch more because I can remember where it ended, and I don't have to.
Yeah, no, we'd be accidentally saying all the wrong things.
Yes.
And really, what I would like also is for that globe to be, and like the mysterious being to be an alien. It's not going to be an alien, I'm sure, but I would love for it to be an alien, and not be somebody on the show or someone else from Star Trek.
Yeah.
Are you enjoying the show so far?
I'm enjoying it a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, I am. How old is Murph supposed to kind of sort of be? I can't tell. Is Murph a kid or is well? If Murph is being considered in the academy as well, I guess that Murph has the same intelligence and maturity.
I was surprised that, given that no one else could understand him, including the adults, I was surprised that they would. I mean, maybe I don't know, but you would think that you'd have to have some way of communicating information as a Starfleet officer, aside from going like doing the wacky wavy arm guy thing.
Yeah,
because arbitrable tube man.
Okay.
Yeah, but because he was introduced, he was almost introduced as like a kid or a baby, even compared to them. A pet, yeah, exactly. And now that one lady said, "Oh, that basically he's got a future in security," and I'm kind of like, yeah, but nobody understands it. I can't tell how old he's supposed to be, honestly. Emotionally, relatively speaking. I've always kind of thought of him as younger than the rest of them. But if they're talking about putting him in the academy, I guess they're saying he's older than I think he is.
I don't know how old any of them are, but really none of them are humans.
Yeah.
So like the chronological, like Kess was a year old, and she could serve in sickbay, and whereas T'Pol was 65 and looked like she was 30, So I mean, I don't know. I guess it depends on how he's a melanoid slime worm. I don't know what their developmental.
Yeah, I don't know. That's the question.
They don't seem to know.
They're happy to put him in security, which we would presume would be arming him. So if they're going to hand you a phaser and put you on a security detail, you would think that you'd have at least the level of cognizance needed to do that. But I mean, how old is Rock Talk? Because she sounds like she's 8 years old.
Yeah.
But I mean, she's being treated like she's old enough to join Starfleet. But I don't know. I'm not really into Murph. I wasn't last year, and I'm still not. Murph is kind of like, to me, it feels like they're trying to do Groot. And I'm sure there's 10-year-olds who love Murph and adults who love Murph. But
I agree.
I think my favorite character is Rock Talk out of the whole bunch.
I hear they finally made a official Murph plush.
Okay.
Finally.
Good. Yeah, and that's why I was asking, questioning Murph, because I agree with you. Murph seems a little bit of an anomaly on the show, and that's why I was saying, because like you said, Murph was introduced almost like a cute kid or almost a pet. Now they're like talking about putting Murph in Starfleet security. It's like, okay, that Murph mature in a way that I didn't realize, because all I hear does go, like you said, I don't know what that is. So that's kind of.
All right, folks in the comments, I got a little behind on the comments, so I'm going to grab a few, but we're getting towards the end, so I won't be able to grab all of them. Mr. Matt Sweatman says, I hope for a commercial release of the Temporal Mechanics 101 handbook.
Yes, me too.
I might need it to go back and rewatch this.
Yes. Yes.
Bill Lamond says, what is Voyager A? As in different from Voyager? Sorry, I'm out of so many loops. Yeah, Bill, we're talking about Star Trek Prodigy Season 2, which does feature the Voyager A, which is the next ship after Voyager.
And it's on Netflix, not...
Yeah, it's on Netflix. If you have Netflix, you can watch both seasons of Star Trek Prodigy on Netflix. And Matt Switman says, Murph can work with whales. Maybe. I mean...
His communication seems strange in that he's speaking in letters instead of words.
Okay. And out of order.
Yes.
He's giving them out of order letters, but presumably in English. Because they were English lettering.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I kind of like the fact that Rock Talk, they kind of assumed from the start that she was going to be the security person, and they were treating her that way. And then she was like, I hate security. I like science. And she went through that Time Amok episode and came out very knowledgeable about science and has since gone down a science path. And I think similarly, I mean, you might think that Murph would be the one in there working with the whales, but I mean, he seems to have an aptitude at least for combat, if not security. So I don't know, maybe it's a good fit. I would hopefully, I mean, they took some baby step towards it with trying to get that communicator to work. So maybe they'll get Murph to the point where we can at least get some kind of communication from him, aside from taking his arms and putting trash in piles. Irish Banshee 1974 says maybe Murph will work more with the water stuff, because who knew Murph thrives more in water? It seemed like they turned into an axolotl when they went swimming.
Yeah.
True. And Bill says his roommate has Netflix.
Yay,
So Bill,
you can watch all of Prodigy.
there's 40 episodes of Star Trek Prodigy available for you on Netflix, and it is a very good show. We recommend it.
One
Okay.
quick thing before we leave, real quick before we leave, one thing about Zero I found very interesting. Zero, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Was when he is having, he's wondering what it's like to be corporeal.
Right.
And
Now,
I found
think
that very
that
interesting.
Zero has been going by they on the show.
Yeah, they, right. Yeah, they. And I found that very interesting because sometimes in Star Trek and other science fiction, they will say that people who like Zero exist on mental stuff. They will sometimes say their form of intimacy is better than we could ever imagine. I'm crossing the streams, but in Babylon 5, there was a telepath once who said, do you know what it's like when two telepaths make love? Because it's not just physical, their minds merge as well.
Right.
And in the original series that introduced the Medusans, one of the things was that when Miranda basically joined with the ambassador, it was a joining that was basically beyond anything physical. So I wonder if it's one of those grass is greener for Zero, because I'm kind of thinking you're mental and man, you can get off in somebody's head and almost merge beings. That's got to be better than physical sex.
Right.
Or intimacy, excuse me. It's not
Yeah.
always sex, intimacy.
Well, yeah, I mean, Odo had kind of the same kind of a thing where
Yeah.
Odo was always kind of separate from the solids, but then had his own thing going on with the female changeling, where they could have a sort of a deeper connection, you know. But I can see where it seems like right now that Zero has sort of a longing to be more like the corporeal beings.
Right.
I'm hoping that they'll eventually come to realize that, like, being a Medusan school, maybe like they just want to be a corporeal because everyone they've been hanging around with is corporeal.
Yeah.
But you know, I would like to see them. I mean, it could be a thing with Majel, maybe because they did mention that, you know, her telepathy increased being around the Medusans, so maybe that could be an avenue to explore that.
Right.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, and Charles, you mentioned DS9 because that's funny because there's the episode when Odo got with the female changeling, and basically they had sex the normal way, and her response was pretty much, it was like, that's it.
Like, that was weird.
Pretty much it. Yeah, that was strange.
I feel
She's
bad
like,
for those solids.
Yeah.
All right. Well, next week, I hope everyone joins us again. We'll be talking about episodes 5 to 10 of Star Trek Prodigy Season 2. We will have watched up to that point by then. We go live
6 through 10.
6 through 10. You're absolutely right. 6 through 10. We go live on Thursday evenings at 8 p.m. Eastern time, talking about the latest Star Trek episode. And in between seasons of Star Trek, we'll talk about legacy Star Trek topics. So throughout the month of July, we'll be talking about Star Trek Prodigy in 5-episode chunks until we get to the end. Keith, where can people find more of you?
X and in Facebook, primarily the ESO Network Facebook groups.
How about us, Veronica?
Feltnerdy.com.
That's right. And if you enjoy puppets or puppetry, you can find us at Felt Nerdy across social medias and on YouTube, as the little trailer we played earlier in the show indicated. That's our family-friendly puppetry. If you like adult-oriented puppetry, we also do very adult things under Felt Nerdy and Dirty, which also can be found across social media. And we actually have a show coming up this coming Sunday at the Red Light Cafe in Atlanta, where we're joining with another puppeteer and doing sort of a double feature kind of event. That'll be Sunday, July 7th at the Red Light Cafe. And listeners of the ESO Network can buy tickets with a discount code. What is the discount code?
ESO 2024.
Right. So look up Felt Nerdy and Dirty on Facebook, or you can Google the Red Light Cafe and you can find us there. Where else can people find us?
Monkeying Around, a podcast about the monkeys.
That's right. And do you have a closing for us this week?
Oh, I can't. I'm trying to do
The whale?
Murph.
Oh,
No.
Murph. Okay.
Murph, Trinity Murph.
Yep.
That's as good. That's good enough.
It all sounds
That's
like
as good as
pudding
the
to me.
makeup.
Yeah.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Thanks all.